Hello, Facebook friends. Hope all of you are doing well. I had a really great opportunity today that I wanted to share with all of you. I had the privilege of attending the Oklahoma Business Ethics Consortium in Oklahoma City, and there was a panel there that was comprised of local journalists and news and information leaders, and the information that they shared, I think, is tremendous for all of us who seek to be advocates of the truth on social media or elsewhere. I do understand one caveat, obviously, that all of us, and I think we need and would do well to embrace this, that all of us operate from a particular bias, okay? And more about that in a few moments. But all of us understand that we are looking at facts from a particular perspective, from a particular political perspective, from a particular historical perspective. I happen to be 47 years old and was raised in a particular part of the country, northeast Arkansas, Mississippi River Delta. So wherever I move in the country or wherever I end up, I always see things from that particular perspective that impacts how I view things. And I'm very well aware of that perspective. And so when I become aware of that bias, then I'm able to look at things from other perspectives and consider other points of view. And so when we have these exchanges on Facebook, when we talk about political ideas, policies, and personalities, I think we would all do well to keep in mind that we are looking at something from a particular perspective. There is no one except God, obviously, that has a truly objective perspective. All of us are wearing a pair of glasses, and we are looking at the world through that particular lens. We are looking at the world or that particular issue with that bias in mind. A lot of times when we see information shared on Facebook or other social media sites or even in the mainstream media, we suspect that there is bias, and that might have more to do with us instead of what is being reported. So keep in mind the next time you're pointing the finger and identifying bias, which does exist in the news, remember that you have to deal with your bias as well, and your perspective and your place in the world, and that influences how you see and how you interpret the world. And so I think one of the problems and one of the issues that we face when we enter these Facebook discussions, and those of you that follow me, you know that I enjoy doing this for several reasons, and I'm not simply attempting to stir things up or to make people angry, but I really do have a desire to get to the truth and to get to a better understanding of what is happening in our world. Now, obviously, in a political sense, I post about other things, but in a political sense, I do have a particular bias when it comes to the 45th President of the United States. And I freely share this. I do not feel that President Donald J. Trump, although I respect his office, I do not feel that he has either the temperament or the character to be the President of the United States. Now, I know that will make a lot of you angry right there, and you'll stop watching, and that's fine. But understand this. I'm not comparing Trump to anyone else. I'm not saying, well, we only had one option. I'm not doing that. What I'm saying is I'm taking the man as he presents himself to the world and as he tells us who he is with the words that he employs and the actions that he engages in and has engaged in. And based upon that observation, I'm simply saying that I personally do not feel that he is qualified to be President of the United States. Now, I know that there were many presidents that had issues, but again, I'm not comparing him to other presidents. I'm simply saying, taking him for who he is and who he presents himself to be, I have issues with him. Now, that being said, one thing that I endeavor to do is I try to encourage people to think. I try to encourage people to engage in conversation and to get beyond our own inherent bias. Now, obviously, when we talk about labels like liberal and conservative, what do those labels even mean anymore, right? Because when we throw those labels out there, we end up disengaging in conversation. It's like the phrase that's really not a good phrase to use at all. Well, we just agree to disagree. Well, when you say that, it stifles the conversation. So what we need to do is we need to focus on engaging in a way that encourages conversation and helps people come to a clearer understanding. And that doesn't mean that you have to agree with me or you have to agree with anyone, really. It simply means that you take the steps to seek first to understand and then to be understood. And one of the speakers pointed out today at the consortium that too many of us are looking for affirmation when it comes to our news instead of information. We're looking for affirmation instead of information. So what do we do? How do we understand if something is real news or fake news? Well, first of all, check the source. If it sounds too good to be true, then it probably isn't. If it's like, yeah, finally somebody agrees with me and this is what I want to be true, and sometimes we face that, right? We look and we seek out information because we want it to be true rather than it really being true. And so there's a couple of great websites that can help you with this. Snopes.com. I had an instance today. Somebody posted something and I was like, yeah, that'd be great if it was true, but I don't think it is. And so I just typed it into Snopes.com and sure enough, it was false. And then there's also at APF Fact Check. This is apnews.com, and just search AP Fact Check and type in whatever you're unsure of to see if it's true before you share it. Sometimes your emotions can be a good guide, because when you see something on social media, remember that is designed by advertisers to get you to click. So if something makes you mad, not always, but if something makes you mad, remember that typically fake news sites appeal to our emotions. How is the writing? Real news writing is punctuated properly. It spells words correctly. So make sure that you're checking that. Who are the writers? Who are the people that are responsible for producing the story? Remember that real journalists are governed by standards, and they are governed by ethical standards that they must adhere to. Remember that it might be satire, people just having fun with the news, like people do on Saturday Night Live. And then think twice before sharing. You may not believe this, but I don't post everything that enters my mind. I would be a fool to do that, and I think anybody else that does that is a fool as well. Think about what you are sharing. Think about what you want to talk about. Anticipate what the conversation might be. And remember, when you enter into a debate, and I believe that debate is healthy for our country. When you enter into a debate, remember, it is very unlikely that you will ever change the mind of your opponent. So the person that offers counter arguments or counter evidence, they're going to immediately begin posting. Remember, it is not about changing their mind. It's about everyone in the audience that is watching. They are the judges, and they are the ones that will be making judgments based upon what you are sharing. So again, control your emotions. Remember, in a free society, this is something we should be engaging in. This is something that we should be talking about. If we want to avoid the problems of history that are well documented, we need to enter into civil discourse. How do we do that? We make sure that the arguments are substantive. We don't fall prey to easy name calling and making fun of people, and we shouldn't do that, but rather we should stick to the facts as we understand them. And remember, absolutely, there is bias in the media. But as journalists, they have particular standards that they must adhere to. Now, obviously, they're in the business to make money. That means that they've got to package the news for their particular audience. So MSNBC is going to package the news for a liberal audience that is to the left and that is too progressive. Fox News is going to package the news for a conservative Republican audience. CNN is probably a little to the left, and they're going to package the news for their particular audience. So again, all of these mainstream news sites, they are reporting basically the same facts, but they are choosing what they emphasize and what they push out there based upon a desire to care and to meet the needs and expectations of their audience. So I welcome all of you to debate. I welcome all of you to discuss. But when it descends into name calling, I'm not going to tolerate that, and I don't think anybody would expect me to. Remember, treat your social media like you would your living room. If you were having a discussion in your living room, what would you put up with? What would you tolerate? What would you want? And a healthy discussion is good because it helps us advance the conversation. It helps us clarify our thoughts and our ideas. But unhealthy name calling and debate, we call it ad hominem. This is when you don't have a particular argument and something that somebody has said has made you mad, so you just start calling them names. Stick to your view, your interpretation of the facts, and let's talk about these issues. Let's talk about these things, because I think all of us agree that what unites us, what should unite us as a country, is greater than what divides us. And everyone is entitled to their opinion, but not every opinion is of equal weight when we look at the requirements of evidence, when we look at the requirements of credibility. When we discuss these things, we understand that some opinions and some issues are more credible when people express them than others. And then you can be entitled to your opinion, and everyone's entitled to their opinion, but not everyone is entitled to their own set of facts. When we look at a fact, when we understand that, okay, it's verifiable, right? We can talk to people and we can discern whether or not this is true or not, then those are things that we've got to go forward with if we want to advance our society and if we want to advance our understanding of the world. So, in conclusion, I encourage all of you to post, to discuss, to debate. Feel free to do so on my page. Remember, I'm not necessarily out to change your mind. I'm speaking to a larger audience, and I'm wanting to convince all of those who are remaining silent, who are watching. And so that's why I do what I do. I feel like this is the way that God has wired me. I feel like I have an obligation to speak up and to speak out, and also in the future, by God's grace, I'm going to have grandkids and great-grandkids, and when they're studying history, I want them to have a resource where they can look back, whether they agree with me or disagree with me, and more than likely, they will disagree with me. But when they disagree with me, they can look back and say, you know what, my great-grandfather, my great-great-grandfather, he thought about these things, and he discussed these things, and he wasn't afraid to take a stand when he thought that he was right. Now, history may prove me wrong, and if that's the case, then I will stand corrected. But at this point in time, with all of my bias, with all of my perspective, I feel like I have an obligation to speak out on the issues of the day, and I invite you to do so as well, but keep it civil. And when I mean by keeping it civil, don't resort to name calling, don't resort to sharing information that isn't true, but stay focused on the facts and don't let your emotions get the best of you. Hey, everybody, have a great day.